I'm a huge horror fan. I love strange horror, creepy horror, unnerving horror, funny horror, horror that makes you think, horror that keeps you awake at night, horror that makes you question yourself and those around you. But what I love most about horror is a great monster. A monster that really embodies what the whole horror media is about. That really haunts you at night, and that stays in your mind rent free, lurking. What makes a horror monster one of the most terrifying is the fear of the unknown and the fear of the self. Humans are the most dominant species on Earth, and we have achieved this by learning about the other creatures surrounding us and adapting to them by creating tools to protect ourselves and learning how to use them to our advantage. This is one of the things that give us peace of mind as a species. But if the enemy is unknown and the tools that we make cannot deal with the threat, humanity's confidence starts to break down. What can you do against a creature that you cannot hurt, cannot even begin to understand? There's only one thing you can do. Run, flee, survive, save yourself. Those are the only things that stay in your mind. The only other thing we fear more than the unknown is the unknown creature on the inside. The monsters in your head, the fear of not being able to control yourself, the thought of accidentally hurting those you love, the fear of not being able to rely on your thoughts and memories anymore, not remembering crucial things and actions you take, your body not listening to you anymore, not being in control in your own body. All these fears run deep inside the human mind. And a truly great piece of horror media takes advantage of those elements in some way, shape, or form. And the alternates from the Mandela Catalogue are without a doubt one of the greatest examples of this in recent media. I think anyone watching this video is familiar with the series, but for those who aren't, I'll give you a quick rundown. The Mandela Catalogue is, to put it briefly, an internet analog horror series about paranormal activities happening in the Mandela County, with a creature, or possibly an alien, taking the form of an angel and influencing the people in history. This monster can create other lesser monsters called alternates, and they hunt humans by messing with their psyches and have a sadistic nature, taking pleasure from causing humans distress. This is one of my favorite analog horror stories, and I strongly recommend it to anyone that's interested in horror. While looking up the lore for a different video I was making, I found a Reddit post talking about how the monsters in Mandela Catalogue are linked to schizophrenia symptoms. This seemed wild and way too interesting of an idea to let go, so I got curious and tried to see if there was some truth to it, and did some research. Turns out, the monsters from the Mandela Catalogue are practically metaphors for schizophrenia. I made this video to prove this point and share my findings. To show you how similar schizophrenia symptoms are to the effects of the alternates from the Mandela Catalogue have on the people, I'll tell you about the effects of schizophrenia and how they relate to the behavior or appearance of the alternates. Schizophrenia has two types of symptoms, called positive symptoms or negative symptoms. These have nothing to do with good or bad types of symptoms, but more on how they work. Positive symptoms are unusual changes in thoughts and feelings that are added on to a person's experiences. They're usually called psychotic symptoms or psychosis. Experiencing psychosis is usually a part of schizophrenia, and negative symptoms are lack of feelings that people with schizophrenia normally have. So the symptoms either add to the emotional state or retract from it. And both types of symptoms can affect your ability to function. Of course, the way that your illness affects you depends on the type of schizophrenia that you have. For example, not everyone with schizophrenia will experience hallucinations or delusions. If you're still asking yourself what the alternates have to do with schizophrenia, then think of it like this. As we can clearly see, the alternates are monsters that look like humans, with deformed or unrecognizable faces that hide in the dark. They prey on you and make you lock yourself up to escape from them. They almost never harm you directly, but just seeing them and listening to their words pushes you to end your life.
Let me in, Mark. I have a gift for you. I have a present. I have a surprise. I will not hurt.
You fucking bastard! How about we go into the symptoms in detail and compare directly? The positive symptoms of schizophrenia are, as mentioned before, hallucinations, delusions, and muddled thinking. Hallucinations are when you see, smell, or hear things that other people don't. For example, hearing voices, seeing things which other people don't see, feeling someone's touch on you who is not there, or smelling things which other people cannot. Hearing voices or other sounds is the most common type of hallucination in schizophrenia. It can be different for everyone. For example, voices may be female or male, someone you know or someone you've never heard. Sounds such as humming in a different language or in a different accent than your own, whispering or shouting, or, or negative and disturbing. You might hear voices sometimes or all the time. These symptoms are exactly what someone who is experiencing an alternate encounter goes through. Alternates like to mess with people for hours or even sometimes days before showing themselves and attacking. They seemingly do it out of pleasure. They're known to touch people and not show themselves, or make sounds of people or animals that aren't there, just to confuse, scare, and create paranoia. Alternates have the power to create sounds of animals, but also mimic human speech, or even use the voices of your loved ones to lure you to them. They also have the ability to shapeshift into other life forms, usually humans but also animals. They are meant to look nearly identical, if not perfect copies of those who or what they are mimicking. Usually the target's loved ones, though not all alternates are great at mimicry, with some alternates being flawed and having deformed facial features. A face that looks obscured, or like if it's dripping. The second positive symptom, delusions are beliefs that are not based on reality, even though they feel real to you. A delusion can happen when you believe something that others think you've misunderstood. You see things in a very different way from everyone else. You have no doubts, but other people see your beliefs as strange or wrong, mistaken. Your explanations or your beliefs don't make sense to others. Your ideas or beliefs can't be explained as part of your background, culture, or religion. For example, you may believe that you are being followed by secret agents or members of the public, that people are out there trying to get you. This can be strangers or people you know, that something has been planted in your brain to monitor your thoughts. You have special powers, or you are on a special mission, or in some cases that you are a god, your food or water is being poisoned, or that you are being controlled and your thoughts are not your own and someone else has put them into your mind. These are almost all things that the characters in Mandela Catalogue are told they're experiencing. Let me elaborate. The thing that popped into my mind when reading this is the police in Mandela Catalogue. You see, in the story, the government doesn't know how to effectively deal with the alternate threat. The creatures seem completely invulnerable to any weapon used on them. They seem to be able to not only communicate information between each other, but also strategize in groups, even though they don't need it most of the time. They are not only very intelligent monsters with no known weakness to be handled very carefully, but spreading the knowledge of their existence just makes them more likely to attack anyone that knows them, and then spread their influence. So, in a world like this, The police are instructed to gaslight people who make alternate related encounters into thinking that it was nothing or that it was a delusion. From the victim's perspective, they're being told that what they saw in the distance with stretched limbs doesn't exist. The man that looks exactly like them, but with a disturbing smile, isn't real. The woman with the impossibly obscured face, with just one eye visible, doesn't exist. And that you are just delusional. What you thought you saw doesn't exist. What terrible fate your friend has suffered from was just a delusion. And that everything is fine. The rationale behind this is that if the victims ignores them, they might just have a higher chance of survival. And in the worst case scenario, since there's no way of eliminating them, they continue telling the victim that it's all in their mind and it was probably a normal person, and that not to worry, help is on its way. But help is not on its way. Help will never be on its way.
Nothing is worth the risk, nothing is worth the risk, nothing is worth the risk.
The third symptom is muddled thinking. If you're experiencing muddled thinking, you might find it harder to concentrate. This might make it more difficult to do things like work, study, read, or watch YouTube. You might find it difficult to join up your thoughts, and they might drift off. Your thoughts may jump around, might lead you to start talking quickly or slowly. Things you say might not make sense to other people. You may switch topics or your words may become jumbled. This is sometimes known as a word salad. This can make conversations difficult for other people to understand. It makes people even more detached from their loved ones and surroundings, since they can't even think straight, even less communicate properly with others. This is very indicative of the metaphysical awareness disorder, also known as MAD, in which, due to the influence of the alternates, the victim loses their sanity and starts to speak incoherently. I will discuss MAD in more detail further down the video. The negative symptoms, in contrast, don't seem that bad. I mean, they seem even light, but do not underestimate them, because they can easily snowball into something much worse. The term negative symptom is used to describe symptoms that involve the loss of ability and enjoyment in life. These symptoms may be the lack of motivation, losing interest in life and activities, not wanting to leave your home, changes of your sleeping patterns, problems concentrating, not wanting to have conversations with people, feeling that you don't have anything to say, losing your normal thoughts and feelings, feeling uncomfortable with people, no energy, poor grooming or hygiene. When I looked at these, they reminded me a lot of the symptoms of depression, so I looked them up to compare. And the results are evident. Persistently sad, anxious, or empty mood feelings of hopelessness or pessimism, feelings of irritability, frustration and restlessness, feelings of guilt, worthlessness, or helplessness, loss of interest or pleasure in hobbies and activities, fatigue, lack of energy, or feeling slowed down, difficulty concentrating, remembering, or making decisions, difficulty sleeping, waking too early in the morning, or oversleeping, changes in appetite or unplanned weight changes, physical aches or pains, headaches, cramps, digestive problems without a clear cause that do not get away with treatment. Thoughts of ending it all. Not everyone who is depressed experiences all these symptoms. Some people experience only a few, while others experience many. Symptoms associated with depression interfere with day-to-day functioning and cause significant distress for people experiencing them. Check, 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 and check. There's so many that match, it cannot be considered coincidence or random overlap. We can clearly see the negative symptoms of schizophrenia are closely related to depression. But there is also a power that the alternates possess that gives you these symptoms but felt very intensely. Metaphysical awareness disorder. MAD. MAD is a psychological, mental illness brought upon by alternates, giving humans verbal information that is not desired to be known by them. After being given this information, the main symptoms of the disorder manifest, which consists of going insane, hence the name MAD, insomnia, extreme desire to end it all, becoming delusional and paranoid, etc. I think that most people agree that these are simplified but extremely amplified versions of the previously mentioned symptoms. MAD is considered a very serious disease with only a 3% survival rate. There's been a 95% increase in diagnosis of this disorder in the past few months before the beginning of the series. 97% of the victims of MAD meet their ends by their own hands, and only 3% are able to stop themselves or be stopped, but the mental scars from the experience aren't shallow. To avoid the development of MAD, it is recommended to avoid excessively frequent religious practices, avoid unnecessary beliefs in philosophical implications, avoid opening your eyes when they are certain that the man in the corner is now inches away from their face. Watching. Basically, all of these are to lessen the chances that you will get too attached or devoted to ideals which can be used by the alternates to manipulate you and make you mad. This may also be a reference that any belief strong enough can lead people to extremes and can be manipulated to harm the individual in general. So, the Mandela Catalogue is one of the creepiest and most disturbing horror stories I've seen in a long time. It not only sets a great creepy ambience and narration, but also uses a deeper, more psychological fear and makes these supernatural creatures even more unnerving by relating them to one of the most disturbing and tragic mental disorders known to humanity: schizophrenia. We can even see this clearly by comparing directly symptoms of the disorder to the effects of the alternates on the affected, like hearing people talk who aren't there, or not being able to think straight and have muddled thoughts, and even how people around react and deal with the monsters and people affected by them, like the police convincing victims that what they're seeing are delusions and unserious, or victims seeming mad or insane from an outsider's perspective. All of this to say that the Mandela Catalogue is a masterfully crafted piece of psychological horror, and if you haven't watched the series, I highly recommend you take a look. And if you have watched it, I hope this video helped you look into it deeper and has raised your enjoyment of the series. As always, if you liked the video or have things you want to add, I really want to know, so please share them in the comments and leave a like. I read them all. I genuinely do. It's a lot of fun, and I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much. Also, I realized while making this video, it really feels like a film theory episode, and that just makes me happy since I was a huge fan of it, and it's still one of the things that inspired me most to make the stuff I make today. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. Thanks for watching.